Take it away, Katey.
Okay. This is Katey Powers from Media Lodge, and this is Meet the Pressers.
Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Brought to you by Public Safety and Education and the Trigger Pressers Union.
This episode is brought to you by Sabre Red, pepper spray and safety products for all Americans. Next Level Training, makers of CERT training products. Mantis, Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Firearms Owners Against Crime Institute for Legal, Legislative, and Educational Action. Meet the Pressers is also supported by other shows, companies, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to Meet the Pressers. My name is Klint Macro, and this is my esteemed co-host, Matthew Mallory. Meet the Pressers is a safe place for trigger pressers to congregate and talk about training, guns, gear, gadgets, all kinds of things Second Amendment related. And tonight we have a very special guest. Matt, would you do us the honor in introducing our guest?
Absolutely, Klint. So we have Katey Powers from Media Lodge on the show tonight. We're going to just talk about Media Lodge, what they do, and kind of what got Katey into the industry. Katey, take it away, ma'am. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. So Media Lodge is a media production and distribution company. It's all digital. We have partnered with multiple publishers in the industry and offer advertising, media, and production pretty much across the board. Everything is from boring stuff like display ads to emails, newsletters, and productions like original productions. So in fact, we're actually I'm going to be the subject of one of our upcoming productions in my first hunt next month. So that should be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Oh, what are you hunting?
Mule deer.
Mule deer.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Haven't done that yet. Though I was getting ready to hunt regular whitetail deer up here in New York. I'm getting in the mood for that.
Yeah, I got to get my license so I can take my flintlock out for a walk. It's typically what happens.
That's a rhyme right there. That's like some band, Klint and the Flintlocks.
Klint and the Flintlocks. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I don't have the patience or the quietness to stalk anything anymore. But anyhow, that's pretty much.
Are you smelly? Can anyone smell you? Are you
smelly? Oh, I'm sure. My wife says I'm smelly. Yes. So I don't know if that's the right kind of smell out in the woods, though. That might keep the bears away or might attract them.
Well, depends on if it's rotting flesh.
So you're in this company that does a lot of production. So does that mean that you have a production background by chance?
I don't necessarily know. I mean, I've done some work myself in voiceover work. I've done some acting, both film and stage, but nothing that anyone would have heard of. It's a couple commercials here and there, and then like just some stage acting. But
yeah, I actually listened to your voice demo.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's very nice. Sorry. So we might have something fun later. We'll try.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we were talking about how the trend now is people mimic these kind of high-end commercials where people are like standing next to a Cadillac and they say, "Ooh, luxury" or whatever, and then they do it with like a can of Pepsi or a Sig Sauer or something like that. So perhaps maybe we'll experiment with that a little bit later on.
Yeah, well, I hope it's you doing it. I'll get to be entertained.
Oh, that's funny.
But no, we operate well, it used to be just exclusively in the 2A space. Media Lodge does anyway, but we've branched out into serving programmatic ads and retargeting through our own seat on the exchange. So we have a little bit of an edge there, but that means that you could get ads wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're on an editorial site that has anything to do with 2A or not. So anyway.
Cool. I suppose that's all targeted and you can buy people's data. And when they say like fish hook, the phone hears that, and then all of a sudden they get a
Yes.
thing on phishing or something. Is that how that
Yes.
works?
Yeah, you're being spied on right now. Yes.
Yes.
No, it's not as creepy as a lot of people think it is. It's not like there's any identifying information. It's a combination of your behavior, your search behavior, your what kind of media you're consuming, where you go geographically, the device ID associated with your phone or your tablet. So no, but it doesn't know what your name is or anything like that.
Yeah. Well,
So almost like
the government
Facebook.
knows my name. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely don't trust the government no matter what, but yes.
Harumph.
Yeah.
Too late. You got to drop all the cell phones in the pond, losing it in a boating accident.
Right.
So what got you into a predominantly two-way media company?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you know that like nobody ever asks me this?
Really?
No.
You heard it here first.
I was recruited because of my professional skills. So that had nothing to do with 2A. It was a very unsexy skills. Managing a group of ad traffickers who spend the entire day booking ads in an ad server. I had a couple, I shouldn't say it's unsexy. I mean, it just sounds really technical and kind of boring, but it's not. It's very process heavy. So my history with that was coming from an ad agency. I shouldn't say it's an ad agency. It was just an agency, a digital agency. And ad serving was one of the services we provided for our clients. And we had huge clients like Hearst and Sinclair and Fox. Not very 2A friendly. And prior to that, I had a background in tech and software development, e-commerce and sporting goods. So the job I'm in now allows me to combine all of those things together. But I got recruited for ad serving, for ad operations management. I had to take my first phone call with Kristen from my car in the parking lot from the agency where I worked.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun. But at the time I was a new gun owner, actually. So it was sort of like a weird timing, and it was very exciting. My husband was super, super jealous. But yeah, it was, that all came together. I wasn't looking to be in the 2A space. A lot of people do, but I just landed here by luck.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just kidding. Was that a prerequisite to the hiring on, that you had to be a gun person, or were they pretty open to experience over guns?
No, it's not a prerequisite, but it doesn't hurt, right? I mean, first of all, to be like just a member of the community, because then you understand the passions and the reasons and the drive, and understanding some of how the legislation will affect you or your loved ones, things like that. So it doesn't hurt.
And I think the reason I was kind of asking that is we're seeing so many companies these days that are getting, if you will, destroyed from the inside by anti-gun people coming into the company and then kind of changing the way it is. I mean, if you look at Walmart, and Sam Walton's probably rolling over in his grave, how Walmart is and such these days. So
it is very difficult to come up against, to stand in your convictions when you are the only person, who maybe has them. And I think it's easy for me to say, well, I would never do that. Like I would never, change. I would never give into pressures of political or societal, I guess, I don't know, dogma, right? But I've never been in that situation, so I hope I never have to be, but not one where my livelihood depended on it. So,
well, luckily for all of us, you're in a predominantly 2A company, and you're going to go hunting soon. And I suppose they're going to shoot video of that. Is that what's going on?
Yes, we are producing a video of that.
Is that going to be an ongoing thing? Like next episode, it's an antelope, and then after that, it's like Bigfoot or something. What's
Bigfoot?
Are you going to pay for all our tags?
Oh, wow.
Probably not. Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on how, the success of this show, I guess. I mean, I haven't seen another production like this. It's a mentoring hunt. It's a female mentoring hunt.
Wow.
So,
So
and
are,
it's, yeah.
are you basically doing like an exploration, like they used to do pilots and stuff for when it was, the cable networks and stuff? Is it something like that?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
Well, you do like a sample show, and then they'd have the
Oh,
bean
a
counters look
pilot.
at it.
I
Yeah,
see. I
pilot.
see.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I wouldn't say that. It wasn't with that intention, but it could be treated that way. I guess it depends. I wouldn't say we would test it the way that a pilot would be tested, but it would be interesting. I don't know how well it would be received. I hear from a lot of the manufacturers and advertisers that we work with that they have this desire to reach the non-traditional shooter.
Mhm.
Like everybody says that.
Yep.
But very few will actually put money and effort toward it. So it's just interesting information, I guess. I think, especially now that the market is down, it's soft a little bit right now. So I think, people are kind of pulling some of their ad dollars back a little bit.
Mhm.
They're less apt to try something new or take a risk. But I know it's on people's minds. It's just, I think everyone's waiting for somebody else to do it first.
I think sometimes that's what has to happen, right? You do it and see how it goes. And even if it doesn't, explode right off the get-go, you've got that on your resume that you did it first and that you're the trendsetter, and that definitely can help with a resume, even if it's not helping with a pocket, which obviously both would be great.
Well, that shows vision and leadership at your company too, because you're right. I've not seen that with, granted, there's so much content on the internet and in the world now that it's really hard to keep up with, but I'm not familiar with anything like that. So I think that could be a really great opportunity. And you look at all the big success stories, we have the ability to like kind of armchair quarterback it and look, oh wow, 2 years ago they did this, and what a groundbreaking thing. Well, they bothered to try it, so
Right.
that's pretty awesome that's happening.
I hope it's successful. I hope at least it resonates with somebody. I mean, we've all seen, not to knock anybody, but like we've all seen like the typical bro hunt, right? Where there's like some drone footage and then there's like some up close high def footage of somebody's boot in the creek. and,
Yeah.
and yes, those are very visually, they're very sexy to watch. But the storylines are not, their story is really about the hunt and a lot of glassing and a lot of sitting around, and the action happens when there's actually being a shot taken. This is going to be more about the motivation and desire for wanting to try something new in a space where you haven't maybe, or I haven't been traditionally encouraged to or necessarily welcome to. My family is not a hunting family. In fact, they were very anti-gun. Like we weren't allowed to even point finger guns at each other as kids. No.
YouTube doesn't allow that either.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, so this is about what's your why? What are you supposed to know? Who are you supposed to ask? What do you need to know? And sort of the emotional journey, some of the emotional journey of what that's going to be like. I have no idea. I mean, it is going to be I'm a novice. I know nothing. So
it'll be organic, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and if you think about all the people that companies are trying to reach just from a business standpoint, they're always looking for new markets. But folks like Matt and I who work a lot just to empower more new people to exercise a right that maybe they didn't see value in last week. This might be a great opportunity to bring some new people into the fold. So don't forget who the audience is. I think that's an important thing. Don't try to make what you're doing into that bro hunt, because that's not what it is.
Right. That's exactly right. So
Sweet.
I don't know how many people are actually I want women to see this. So we're going to try to target women with it.
Cool. So you said your husband was jealous when you got the gig. So is he a gun owner and a shooter before you got involved here?
Yes.
So how'd that go over with your family that was anti-gun?
Well, they are still very uncomfortable even hearing about it. It's interesting. I grew up in a family where my mother was a Democrat and my father was a Republican.
Wow.
And there were,
I like how you got quiet when you said that.
yeah,
Like you don't want the neighbors to hear.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's
There
funny.
are probably a few people that came from like a politically split family.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because I got to hear both of their arguments all the time about, because they're both pretty, well, my mom in particular, she was a social worker until she retired. So her view was obviously, very affected by her work. And my
Well, and she was
dad
probably
was,
exposed to a lot of things that other people were not,
yes,
so.
yes. And some of those things they still haunt me today. They are a cross section of humanity that many people just don't want to acknowledge or talk about.
Yeah.
But they are part of our collective psyche, whether we like it or not. And my dad's point of view was strictly economic. So not social. My mom's was very social. But eventually my dad flipped to the other side. And now they're both like not just Democrats, but super liberal. And, there is a difference, right?
Yep.
Super leftist, I should say. And so they're, when I think, I don't even remember telling them that I bought a gun, but I remember talking about it, at different times, and that they just sort of sit and look at me like, okay, with not actually verbalizing their judgment, but certainly demonstrating it through their behavior. Yes.
Yeah.
But they don't, all I can think about when people are judgmental or make a lot of, I guess, just make judgments about gun ownership, and me in particular, is that you're just lucky you've never been in a situation where you've ever wished that you were a gun owner. And I mean, maybe they have, but I don't know about it, but I would like to think that they would change their mind if they had been.
Well, on that note, what brought you to be a gun owner, if you don't mind talking about that?
Yeah. So I had a relationship after my husband and I had split. So I got married really young. I was 19 when I got married and didn't have never dated out of high school or anything like that. So when my husband and I split, I had never dated. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try dating. And it was terrifying. I'm sure it's terrifying for people now who did date after high school and dated in college as a young adult, but I was absolutely terrified. And I was really trying to explore. I mean, you learn who you are through dating a lot in your early 20s or whatever. And since I didn't do that, and I was in my mid to late 30s, doing that was like learning who I was all over again. And I went on a few dates with a few guys, and it was just like, I don't know how to do this. It was very awkward. And then I did meet somebody who was just super dynamic and very charismatic, which should have been a flag, but it wasn't. We dated for about a year. And during that time, I noticed he was a heavy drinker and had some behaviors that bothered me, that were troublesome. But again, I was brought up to believe that everybody's a good person. There's no such thing as a bad person. It's just a good person who needs help. I got that from my mother, of course, the social worker. And so the part of me that was super vulnerable to that just decided this person needed my help, right? So I went into help mode. And after I dated him for he moved in with me after a year. And we were together for about another year in my house. And during that time, it felt slow, but I think, a year isn't that long. The relationship just devolved to a point where I wouldn't recognize myself today. Like I was ultimately very cut off and isolated from my friends and my family, super manipulated. Yeah, and certainly my self-esteem was chipped away at quite a bit. He was a violent person because he told me that he was. He bragged it to me about some altercations he'd been in his past before I met him. He would do things around me where he wouldn't like hit me or take a swing at me or anything like that, but he would do things that now I know are forms of physical violence and threats. He would stand in my way. He wouldn't let me out of doorways or out of rooms. He would, if I was under the covers, he would lay on top of the covers so that I couldn't get up and get in my face and scream at me. And certainly he was verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. And by then I really felt like I was never going to get out of this relationship. And I didn't know how. And then, you know, my mom used to say with kids who were abused or neglected or otherwise in some sort of terrible situation, sometimes all they needed was one person, one adult to either notice them, see them, something. And that's how it was for me. I had a coworker who I was just IMing with him one day, and he asked me how things were going, and I kind of spilled my guts a little bit. Just things were not going well. I was extremely anxious. I've never been so anxious in my life. Just to add some context, I had over the years developed an eating disorder. And at that time, it was so bad that my hair was falling out. I was rearing up out of bed with like Charlie horse cramps and couldn't sleep. My anxiety was so high. My hair turned white during the year that he lived with me. This is hair dye. And I was IMing with this coworker, and I told him what was going on, and he was like, you don't have to live with him. You can ask him to leave. And I was like, I can't. He's gonna flip out. I don't know what he's gonna do. I just was scared. And I didn't know I was scared. I always thought of myself as I was told all my life, you're such a strong person. You're kind of a bossy bitch, all these things, which it's a badge of honor, let me tell you. Just him saying that, he goes, here's what you do. You pack up his stuff and you put it in a suitcase and you put it on the front step, and then you lock the doors. And when he comes home, just tell him you don't want him to come in and that he needs to leave. And I was like, I can't do that. He's like, yes, you can. Just go do it right now. And I was like, I can't. And I just kind of kept arguing with him. And he was like, okay, well, I'll be here if you change your mind. Like, just know that that's an option. And that just felt like super impulsive, and like something bad was going to happen if I did that. So I started making phone calls. That was the impetus, though, for me to start making phone calls. I called the county. I called two of my friends who were cops. I called my ex-husband. I went to the courthouse, the county courthouse, and asked to speak to a social worker. And I talked to a sheriff's deputy. I talked to so many people to find out what was required, what could happen, what are the risks, all that stuff. I called my bank. I hid my hard drives. I did a lot of things to try to prepare for this, to find out as much information as I possibly could. And the police told me that they couldn't do anything unless he had physically harmed me. Mm-hmm. And that was like, well, can I swear on this show?
Yeah.
You can swear. Fuck yeah.
I'm like, that was so fucked up. I was like, what am I supposed to do? And the social worker was like, write down, she had me fill out a report because she thought she had me fill out an order for protection. So she's like, there's probably enough here. I'm like, well, he still hasn't hit me. She's like, it doesn't matter. Just fill it out. And she knew which judge she was going to give it to.
Yeah.
So that's what she did. And she's like, okay, I'll take care of this. I'll get back to you, whatever. Just try to relax, try to know that, you can call, etc. So I went home. He came, this was a Thursday. He came home from work and I told him that I didn't want to be with him anymore. I was trying to, and I knew I had wanted to break up with him for so long and I just didn't know how. He was very calm for like 48 hours. And I think actually I told part of the story out of order. I had not gone to the social worker at the county yet. Okay. But everybody else I had talked to. In Minnesota, the law says that if you evict someone, you have to give them written notice and they have 30 days. You have to give them 30 days to move out.
Wow.
And the sheriff's deputy was like, well, that's what the law says. I happen to know that that's what the law is, but I'm not a lawyer, etc. And he kind of gave me the spiel and I just interrupted him. And I was like, what? Just stop. Like, what if I were your sister or your daughter? Like, what would you tell me?
Mhm.
And he was like, just kick him the fuck out and just hope he doesn't know what the law is and lock the doors. And that's
Smart.
that. Yeah, that was good advice. And so
It was good questioning on your part too.
Well,
You put, you made him, you added a personal feel to it as far as, you being his sister kind of mindset. That's good.
right. Yeah. And 48 hours later, he started to kind of get real weird with me. He was drinking really heavily again. For a while, he had been dry because I had asked him not to drink. Started drinking. He said he was going to go out. He didn't have a car because he didn't have any money. Of course, I had a car and I knew he was going to try to take my car. And I saw him looking for my keys. And he was already drunk. So I didn't want him driving and I didn't want him taking my car. So I took the keys and I ran up the stairs and I had my phone in my hand and I locked myself in the bathroom. And because I heard him coming after me. And he starts, he's outside the door, just open the door, begging me to open the door, And then it was, why are you being such a bitch? Then it turned into that. And I was like, leave me alone. Just leave or I'm going to call the police. He, by the way, he has dual citizenship in the United States and Mexico. His mother was American, moved to Mexico. He was born in Mexico, but he moved to the United States when he was in his late 20s. So he spoke perfect English with almost no accent because he spoke English at home and he spoke Spanish outside the home. So, but he had this fear, he had this belief, and I don't know if he says it was cultural. He did not want to be, quote, in the system. So he had a fear of being booked, of course. So me threatening to call the police was enough for him to back off a little bit. My phone was about to die, though. I had like 1 or 2% left on my phone, and my bedroom was across the hall. So I just waited until I heard him kind of scoot away from the door, and I quickly ran from the bathroom into the bedroom, and I shut the door and locked the door and plugged my phone in. And I had the phone in my hand, and I heard him come back up the stairs, and this time he was banging on the door. Give me the keys, stop being a bitch, all that stuff. And he fucking kicked my door in and broke the door in half.
Wow.
And I had my hand on the send button on my phone at that point. I had already dialed 911. I got the dispatcher on the phone, and the minute he heard the dispatcher's voice, he totally changed, and he was like, okay, I'm sorry, there's a big misunderstanding, et cetera, et cetera. And he took off, and it was late October in Minnesota. So it was cold, and he didn't have a coat. And I locked all the doors, and he kept calling and he kept texting, et cetera, et cetera. And he never came back into my house after that. But I lived in terror for I don't even know how many days went by. But during that time, within the next day or two, that's when I went to the county. It must have been the following Monday. Got the order for protection. The judge signed it within 10 minutes or something.
Good.
But they couldn't serve him because they couldn't find him. He never went back to work, and I don't know where he was staying, but he kept texting me, and eventually I did talk to him on the phone. And just to get him to kind of calm down, I told him, if you I can't remember, I think it's called Rule 29. There is some kind of legislation in Minnesota, or there was at the time, that if you cannot afford a chemical dependency assessment, that the state will pay for it. And then they will pay for your treatment if you need it. I said, if you go through that assessment and move forward with the recommendations, we will talk about it, which of course was a lie. I did not want to have anything to do with him at that point. But he was like, no, I'm not doing that, which didn't surprise me. So his mom lived in California. So I offered to give him a one-way ticket to California. And at first he told me to fuck off, and like that was not going to happen, and he's not leaving, and he's, I bought the ticket anyway and just emailed it to him or texted it to him. Said, okay, it's yours if you want it, because you don't have anywhere else to go. And because everything was in my name, including his phone, I also had tracking on his phone. So I knew I'd be able to tell if he got to California. However many days, I think it was like 2-3 days. I can't remember. I changed all the locks. All that stuff. I made arrangements with the sheriff to give him his belongings with them present, but it never happened because the sheriff's deputy came at the wrong time, and he didn't show up at the right time, and it just never worked out. Eventually, I put his stuff on the front step in a suitcase and told him it was there, and if he wanted to come get it, he could. It sat there for a couple days. And I was like up in my bedroom, like looking out the blinds. I mean, I was completely freaked out, waiting for him to come and get his shit. And like half an hour before he was supposed to be at the airport, I saw somebody pull up. He jumped out of the back. He grabbed his suitcase, got back in the car and left. And he never told me he was going to the airport. He never told me he was going to get his stuff. Never told me he was going to California. I just watched on his tracking. And ultimately he got there, and then I could just
cancel his phone.
Yeah. Well, I had to make sure he was there for a while. So, yeah, I think I let 2 weeks or something go by. He ultimately was served the order. He kept contacting me or trying to until he got served, but it was months before he got served.
Wow. Because
I think he got pulled over on a traffic stop or something.
Probably in somebody else's car.
Probably, yeah, because his car had actually been repoed at that point.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was a real winner. I'm a smart person, but I'll tell you, all these women who are like, this could never happen to me because I'm smart. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your ability to detect the signs of somebody who is a sociopath or a narcissist. And I was brought up in a family where there was no chance of having that kind of emotional radar. I mean, my family has its own set of dysfunctions. So, and there was violence in my family too. And as you probably both know, the statistics about people who are, kids who suffer child abuse are more likely to find themselves in abusive relationships. So lots of therapy, lots and lots of therapy.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the day the order expired, he fucking called me. I did not expect that at all. But I remember my friend who was a police officer, he's like, he will do anything. He's the kind of person that will do anything to see you, including going to court just to see you. So do not ever get back together with him. Don't talk to him. Don't give him any reason.
Don't feed it. Right.
But he did try to stalk me. I mean, he was looking in my calendar. I had forgotten he had access to my calendar.
Wow.
I had to turn off all of my social media and make it private for years. It was so embarrassing. I had to tell at the time I had to tell my HR director that if he ever came to my office or tried to contact me, that not to tell them anything. I had to go to my kids' schools and tell them. I mean, it was just a ridiculous ordeal.
Yeah, but you're kind and you want to have a relationship, so you open yourself up, and other people, they don't open themselves up. They hide that stuff specifically to prey on good people like you. So I mean, don't hold that against yourself. Yeah, it took you took some friends to snap you out of it. And when it happened, you sound like you were very tactical. When you're saying all those things that you did, I'm thinking like I'm clearing a building or something. I'm like, okay, I gotta pie this corner, clear this stairwell. I mean, you tactically went through that to make sure that you were well educated on it to plan all your moves. So that was kudos to you on that.
Well, thanks. I could not have done it without help, honestly. And I kind of had my ex-husband was trying to help me too. I was like, just, whatever. I had a lot of help. So, the thing I regret the most about all of this is that my kids lived through it. They had to live with him. And I will never, ever feel like that. This business of like everything happens for a reason. I hate that saying. That's just me. There's no reason for any of that to have happened. It was horrible. My kids still remember. One of my kids has blocked it all out completely. And the other one is like, if I ever see that motherfucker, he's dead.
Wow.
Like, it's just
drastic both ways.
Well, I mean, you can look at it this way though, too. With you sharing this story, perhaps you can have someone else not go through with what you went through because of it.
Yeah, I hope so. To bring it full circle though, I had some major PTSD from this, and from this combined with some of my own stuff, it just created some physical symptoms, some certainly emotional ones, and some behavioral ones. But I don't know what got into my head, but I think just that fear of feeling helpless, because in that moment when he broke the door down, I was like, maybe I'm going to die. I don't know. I don't ever want to feel it. I didn't ever want to feel like that again. And so I thought, well, maybe I should get a gun. Maybe I should learn how to protect myself with a gun. And I'll tell you what, it was like a mission after that thought. And once I decided that and started going and exploring different options, trying out different guns and talking to different people about what I should do, I started to feel better. I just did. It was a very healing experience. And then when I did finally actually decide on what I was going to get, and I got it, and I paid for it with my own big girl money, I felt really, really good.
Satisfying.
Very, yeah.
Empowering.
Yeah. And not ever defenseless. There's been many times throughout my life that I have been defenseless at the hands of someone more powerful. And to feel like that never has to happen again is just, I can't even describe what that's like. It's like being let out of jail or something.
This is an incredibly powerful story, and I get a chance to sit down with legislators quite often, and many of them are not terribly pro 2A or pro individual rights and liberties for that matter. But when you tell them stories like this of yours that are actual, real and personal like that, a lot of times some of those folks that are somewhere in the middle or a little bit indifferent start to understand what that Second Amendment is really all about. And it's really all about helping to empower individuals to protect themselves from criminals like that, and then ultimately from tyrants as well. That's part of it. But
right.
This story is very powerful, and I really thank you for sharing it.
Oh, well, thank you for asking about it. It feels like a part of me that I don't like, but I have to own. But
it's tough. I know when I asked you when we met at the USCC Expo and I was talking to you about it, you said that you're not interesting, but I beg to differ. And I think that I definitely think that the story, like I mentioned to you that night, I think it's a story that will help. Like Klint said, it's going to help other people. It's going to make people realize that somebody else is going through the same thing that you went through, and this is a way out. So,
well, thank you. Thank you.
And if you approach your hunting show with this much honesty, you're going to get lots of new sponsors.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of both of you. I think since then, I don't think, I tell women that I know, I mean, statistically, and even before I knew the statistics, I mean, the greatest physical threat to a woman is a man. It's just the way it is. The statistics say that I think 1 in every 3 women is attacked by a man that they know. And your chances of getting into a car accident are 1 in 62. So you have a much greater chance of suffering some kind of attack by a person that you know as a woman. And so I don't see why there's any reason. I mean, it doesn't matter unless you're like an MMA fighter. You're not going to fight off a man who outweighs you by 20, 40, 50, 100 pounds.
But even
Interestingly enough, I just spoke to an MMA fighter that was talking about a home invasion.
Oh,
and
God.
he's like a champion MMA fighter, and it took him 20 minutes to fight this guy off, and he thought he was going to take him, and it's because he was all hopped up on drugs and stuff. So even an MMA fighter is in some cases potentially defenseless too if that person doesn't mind getting hurt. I guess
Yeah,
my dad always said the one that's going to win the fight is the one that doesn't mind getting hurt. I
That's
suppose
right.
that's true to a degree.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I had a student, female student who wrestled with her brothers growing up and everything. And she was leaving. It was late at night, and she was walking down the street, and some guy came up and grabbed her by the back of her hair and started dragging her behind some bushes to rape her. And
Oh, my
she
God.
said she fought with everything she could fight with to stop him. And she was holding him off to a point, and he got frustrated that he couldn't have his way with her. So he broke a bottle and slashed her in the face, cutting her face open, and then left her. So,
Oh, my God.
yeah,
It's,
but she survived because she fought, and she had some of that experience. So even though, if she didn't have any experience, or she didn't know to fight back or how to fight back, that might not have ended as well for her, even though it did end pretty horrifically. At least she wasn't
Right.
raped, and she wasn't killed.
Right. I mean, I have learned that, you have to, if you're not going to, hopefully I'll never have to be in a situation where somebody has to learn about what a pain in the ass I am, but all I have to do is look like a pain in the ass. I mean, really, that's it.
That's a big deterrent right there.
It is.
Yeah, look crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm already loud, so I got that nailed. And when I'm out in public, and in particular, like I get very nervous when I'm loading groceries into my car or when I'm getting
Mhm.
gas. Those are the two times when, and of course, that's basically all I ever go out for these days. But basically I have to look around, make a lot of eye contact and shoot a lot of dirty looks at people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like just don't come at me or I'll make a fucking scene.
And just because of that, you are much less likely to be attacked. And
Right.
we know this.
Right.
That's a positive as far from a tactical standpoint. You have your head up, you're looking around, you're collecting and processing information, but it's definitely a deterrent
Yeah.
because the average opportunistic criminal is probably not going to want to fight with someone that's going to be a pain in the ass.
Or be able to ID them, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of psychological stuff there.
But you have the right mindset, and that's important. We'll take divine intervention, or call it luck, whatever you want to call it, God's grace, or luck, whatever you're into.
Mhm.
That's always a thing. But
Mhm.
I think having the right mindset of, I will take steps to protect myself and my family, and I will be disciplined to keep my eyes open and throw those nasty looks and keep my head up. That's huge. And that's something anybody of any size, any background,
Mhm.
it doesn't even matter if you have money or not, you can do that. And that's going to be more likely to protect you and your family.
And some of the classes that I teach too, I'll mention the difference between this to somebody or this to somebody. You bow your head
Mhm.
down, submissive, but you're acknowledging them. You do this, it could be a challenge to the wrong person. So it's just simple things like
Yeah.
that people being, having
So
that knowledge.
What's up, dude? That man nod, is that going to make you want to throw down with me if I do that in the dark
Yes,
room?
let's do it. Come on.
I'll get the popcorn.
Wait, in a dark room.
Oh yeah,
Why it's got to be a dark room?
Yeah, Matt Mallory can kick my ass. He's already done it. Yeah. Yeah. He's got about that much more reach, and he's about
Stop.
10 pounds, 15 pounds lighter than me. So he's got a little more stamina.
He's a
So
little more
yeah.
nimble.
Nimble. Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good Matt Nimble Mallory. That's perfect. I see a new t-shirt coming.
Matt be nimble, Matt be quick.
Ooh, I like that. It's like a new band.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and telling your story. So one last thing, and I'll ask. You did a voiceover reel. So what was your favorite ad to do? What was your favorite copy to read?
Oh, that I got paid for, or just that I read?
Oh, well, I suppose that's a fair question to ask. I'd say whatever you just read. How about that?
Oh, whatever I just read.
Yeah, whatever you read.
I would say a spot for Lindsay Olives.
Do you remember it?
I don't remember the whole spot, but
Oh,
it's actually I faked an East Coast accent for it. Yeah, Lindsay Olives.
so just I think, can you give us an East Coast accent?
Oh God, no, because I'm people are gonna come at me, they'll come at you. It's just it'll sound like I'm making fun of them.
Oh, okay.
Good,
Well,
good PR, or no, a bad PR is good PR, right?
Oh, right. No, this was a spot for Lindsay Olives, and it was about, hailing somebody on the boardwalk. So
that's not bad.
That
That's
was
not
good.
bad at all. Yeah.
That was good.
yeah, but generally speaking, you shouldn't do voiceover in a unless you're a comedian. You shouldn't, put on an accent that isn't natural for you. Voiceover should just be very, very relaxed, very natural. There's a lot of cleansing breaths that happen. You have to be standing up.
Have you ever seen the Saturday Night Live episode where what's his name? Kevin Hart hosted, and he did a Dove chocolate commercial?
No.
All right, you got to Google that one. When we hang up, Kevin Hart, Dove chocolate. It's if you've done any voiceover, anyone that's ever been in a recording studio or had to listen to a producer or something, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Now you need to put that in the show.
Maybe I will. If they sue us, that means more than 10
More
people.
PR. Bad PR is good PR.
That's right.
So
That's right.
last question for you, quick, because I was thinking about it earlier. I made a note here. How does Media Lodge deal with, or how do you guys deal with shadow ban, suppressions, banning of accounts and stuff like that? Because I think that's something that in our industry we're dealing with left and right, and it kind of defeats us, which is obviously their goal, is to diminish our cause and our
stifle our voice.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you guys as a company deal with that, and is there a way to get through that wall?
Sure. Yes and no. When you're talking about being shadow banned or flagged, I think you're talking about social media. I mean, that's what I think about. Google, there's nothing you can do. The Google machine is somebody you can't get around. So no paid ads for guns or ammunition. Accessories, yes. Magazines are kind of on the fence. A lot of them will not do magazines, but or Google won't do magazines, but mostly accessories you can be okay. But being shadow banned and things like that on social media, we don't necessarily get around those things. What we do, because we can't, and we're talking about being like paid ads. So you get banned for multiple things. You get banned for linking to e-commerce websites that sell guns or ammunition. You get banned for doing promotions that link to, you don't even have to link, you just talk about the site, mention the site with promotions like a discount code or something like that, or paid ads that go to any of those places. They will not allow any of those things. Yes. Because we have our own following, we just don't use paid ads. We just use our social media network to basically be a proxy for the advertiser to reach a broader audience. That said, we also have the programmatic retargeting that I mentioned earlier with a seat on the exchange. It's not going around, because publishers can decide, are they going to accept advertising from manufacturers or advertisers that sell guns or ammunition, yes or no? Most of them say no. But we work with publishers that do allow it, and they do allow programmatic advertising on their site from guns and ammunition companies. So it's not so much that we're getting around it. It's more that we just happen to be connected to the right people and know what the operations are and how they work, so that we can ask the right questions, get to the right publishers, and apps that will allow it.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like
so
your
rather than circumvent, you're navigating through it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We
Kinda like-
also have an influencer program, and several of our influencers, I shouldn't say several, actually more like a handful of our influencers have direct relationships with a rep at YouTube and or Facebook that are making their lives a lot easier as far as
instrumental in that case.
Yeah.
Sounds like kind of like your own little ecosystem, if you will. You're setting it up. You're using some of that stuff, but you're making your own,
Yes,
your own brand.
that's right. Yeah,
That's good. That's good. That's kind of what we have to do in this industry, right?
Yeah.
it is.
What we're
So
reduced to.
I know I wonder what the next trick up, big tech sleeve is going to be.
I don't know. More jabs, more COVID. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
tell people how they can learn more about you, more about the company, Media Lodge, and get a hold of you.
So you can, I could talk about the Media Lodge website, but it's under construction at the moment, or reconstruction. So it's a little bit out of date, but you can certainly go to medialodge.com. You can email me at Media Lodge or Katey at medialodge.com. I'm on social media as well. So it's within this industry, you should be able to reach me through the website or through email. And we'll do anything to help anybody that needs it. And we're very flexible. We know that this industry it's a fraternity. And so we have to help each other out. We'll do a lot to help out companies and advertisers and, other partners that we believe in, that have the same kind of vision. So don't be deterred by, a budget or tech constraints or resources. We'll do what we can to help you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Well,
Thanks, guys.
thanks for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate you telling your story. And I could tell with the honesty and passion that you had behind that was not easy for you to do. But I truly believe that folks that are going to be watching this will be touched by that. And hopefully some of the folks that watch that will be able to avoid some of the problems that you had to deal with, because maybe this is the discussion that they will need to get their life, get them to a point to where they can take on responsibility to protect themselves.
I hope so. I thank you for saying that. I hope if it's a decision that anyone has to make, particularly women, it is scary, but do it anyway. And get training, because the training is the part that will really, really empower you, not just having the gun. But thank you for saying that, Clint.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Super. Awesome. So glad that I bumped into you in Wisconsin, and look forward to doing much, much more with you in the future.
Thanks, Matt. Me too.
There's a lot of sponsors that make this show possible, like Mantis.
Make sure you check them out and give them your business.
This episode is brought to you by Saber Red, pepper spray and safety products for all Americans. Next Level Training, makers of CERT training products. Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Firearms Owners Against Crime Institute for Legal, Legislative, and Educational Action. Meet the Pressers is also supported by other shows, companies, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Thanks for watching or listening to our show. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, click that little bell thingy so you know when the next episode's uploaded. Support us on Patreon. Come to one of our classes. Host us to come to you and do one of our classes at your location.
And until next time,
adieu.
Thank you for watching Meet the Pressers.